Hey, welcome back to another video from the Fun Pharm Tech, going over pharmacy technician things and what you'll need to know to pass the pharmacy technician exam. This is going to be week 2 of the 8-week online course. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for future updates and future releases of weeks 3 through 8 and anything else I see fit. Thanks for joining, and I hope you get out of this as much as I put into it. So let's begin. First, we'll go ahead and review what we talked about in week 1. So how many pounds are in a kilogram? The answer is 2.2 pounds. How many milliliters are in a teaspoon? The answer is 5 milliliters. How many teaspoons in 1 tablespoon? 3 teaspoons. How many milligrams in 2 grains? So you got to be careful. The GR, it could be confused with grams, but GR, it means grains. So we know that 1 grain has 60 milligrams, so 2 grains would have 120 milligrams. 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters, or 28.4. But in this course that I teach, of course, I like to say that it's 30. How many milliliters in 1 gallon? 3,840 milliliters. All right, let's review some of these Roman numerals. XXXIII is 33. What is the Roman numeral for 14? XIV. What does XVI mean? 16. XLVIII? 48. How would you say 36 in Roman numerals? XXXVI. LXXXVII is 87. 346 is CCC XLVI. LXXI 71. And if you need help going over the Roman numerals, feel free to go ahead and watch the Roman numeral video, and I'll go ahead and put that in the link below. So the next part is going to be temperature conversions. So let's convert 29 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. That's going to be, let's go ahead and put both those questions up first. And then once you're done with that, convert 117 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. So when converting 29 Celsius to Fahrenheit, that's going to be 84.2 degrees Fahrenheit. When you convert 117 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, that's going to be 47.2 degrees Celsius. Now remember, this is the formula that I like to use. 5F equals 9C plus 160. So if you have your degrees Celsius, you could just plug that in there, do some simple algebra, and solve for degrees Fahrenheit, and vice versa. So that is a really helpful formula. I would recommend to memorize this formula because this will be able to help you with all your temperature conversion needs. Alright, so in week 2, the things that we're going to cover in this video is going to be the controlled substance and pharmacy law, antihypertensive medications, ratios and proportions. Let's go back to that real quick. And don't mind the page numbers. Those page numbers are in the book that I offer through my class, so just ignore those pages. Alright, so controlled substance and pharmacy law. There's the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 Any person who dispenses, manufactures, wholesales, or distributes a controlled substance must be registered with the DEA and have a DEA number. A DEA number is made up of 2 alphabet characters and 7 numbers. For example, the DEA number on the top is AP 1857397. Well, let's figure out if that's a valid DEA number or not. The first letter represents who is dispensing a controlled substance. So if it starts with an M, it's going to be a mid-level practitioner, a wholesaler, and pharmacies. If it starts with an R, it's going to be wholesalers. A or B is for all others. The second letter is the first letter of the person's last name or the first letter of the business. For example, the P above would be the prescriber's first initial of the last name. So we'll say their last name is Peterson. The 7 numbers are computer generated and the first 6 numbers can be added up to check the 7th number. First thing to do is add the first, third, and 5th number together. So in this example, we would add the 1 plus the 5 plus the 3. That gives us 9. Then we would add the 2nd, 4th, and 6th number together and multiply by 2. So 8 plus 7 plus 9 equals 24 times 2 is 48. Then we're going to add the 2 numbers together. So 9 plus 48 is 57. And you can see we get the 9 here, and we get the 48 here, and that gives us the 57 here. The 7th number will be the last digit of that number. So you see above that number 7 and that number 7. So we know that this DEA number is a valid DEA number. Let's practice. Is this the correct DEA number? Is this the correct DEA number? What about this one? Go ahead and put the video on pause and try to do these yourself. For the first one, the last digit is 6, so that would be a correct DEA number. The second one, the last digit should be a 1, so that is an incorrect DEA number. This last one, when you add those up, it should be 0, which is also an incorrect DEA number. Schedules for controlled substances. So this is going to be important for your test as well. You're going to need to know what it means for drugs to be C1 through C5, what restrictions they have, and to the laws that pertain to those restrictions. So the Schedule 1 or Class 1 drugs are going to be for the illicit drugs that have no medical use and have a high potential for abuse and addiction. Examples include LSD, marijuana, and heroin. I know, marijuana is a touchy subject right now, and I'm not sure if it fits in Class 1 anymore, but that's what we're going to go off of. Schedule 2 or Class 2 are going to be for the drugs with a high potential for mental and physical abuse and addiction, but have some medicinal benefits, usually made up of a narcotic and non-narcotic drugs. Examples include Percocet or Percodan for pain, Ritalin or Adderall for attention deficit disorder, and another example is Oxycontin for pain. Schedule 3 or Class 3 drug has the potential for abuse, but a moderate to low physical dependence and a high mental dependence. These drugs are shown to have medicinal benefits. Examples include Tylenol with codeine for pains and headaches, Vicodin ES for pain, testosterone and Fiorinol for headaches. Schedule 4 and Class 4 drugs have a low potential for abuse and a limited chance for physical and mental dependence and have known medicinal benefits. Examples include benzodiazepines and barbiturates, such as lorazepam, diazepam, and Darvon, or propoxyphene. Schedule 5 or Class 5 drugs have a low potential for abuse and a very low chance of physical and mental addiction. They usually are cough suppressants such as Tylenol with codeine elixir and Phenergan with codeine elixir. Alright, so this is going to be the requirements for a controlled substance prescription. So these items need to be on every single prescription that have a controlled medication written on it. You'll need to have the full name of the patient, the address of the patient, the date the prescription was written, the name and strength of the drug, directions for use, dosage form, quantity to be dispensed, prescriber's DEA number, address, and their signature. And depending on the medication, you'll also need the diagnosis. Controlled refills. A prescription written for a controlled substance for a C3 and 4 drug cannot be filled or refilled after 6 months from the date written or 5 refills. C3 and C4 cannot be refilled after 5 refills unless the prescriber gives authorization for a new prescription. C5 medications can be dispensed for the amount of time issued by the prescriber, which is good for 1 year. C2 medications can never be refilled. We will always need a new prescription after each fill. Prescriptions received by fax. Schedule II prescriptions may be transmitted by fax, but a hard copy must be presented to pick up the prescription. Schedule 3, 4, and 5 may be faxed, and the fax may serve as a hard copy. Alright, now it's the fun part to go over some of the laws. You won't need to know everything that I present in these laws, but you will need to understand the general concept of the law and what it does. So the Pure Federal Food and Drug Act of 1906 was passed in 1906 by Congress. It was also referred to as the Wiley Act. Food preservatives and dyes being used in food processing were found to be harmful to the population. Also, manufacturers made claims for their cures that would not work. Opium, morphine, and cocaine were sold without regulation. Just imagine what it would be like now to have all this medication sold without regulation. No ingredients on labels and no warnings of misuse. The Act protected against misbranding and adulteration and to the purity of products. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938 was passed 5 years after 100 deaths due to a poisonous solvent in elixir of sulfanilamide. This law forced the manufacturers to prove what was in their product and provide scientific evidence to its claims. Cosmetics and therapeutic devices were now regulated. The Durham-Humphrey Amendment of 1951 was passed as an amendment to the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. This amendment gave requirements for prescription labels. It prohibited refill requests without the consent of a practitioner. Defined which drugs could be over-the-counter products as the following: drugs that the layperson could understand and did not have to be supervised by a physician. The Kefauver-Harris Amendment of 1962. In 1962, the drug thalidomide was found to cause birth defects in babies in Europe. It was under investigation in our country at the same time of incident. In response, the United States passed this amendment, required signed patient consent forms for new investigational drugs, drug manufacturers required to prove the effectiveness of products. It required manufacturers to have good manufacturing practices, manufacturers to provide product updates and package inserts, and it gave the FDA more power over clinical investigations. So because of the Kefauver-Harris Amendment, I can no longer produce drugs in my garage. I'm not sure if you guys have heard on the radio, but sometimes they say, hey, you want to earn $500 to $1,000? Come test this drug out. This is kind of how they get patients to sign consent forms for the new investigational drugs. Now in the comments below, if you remember the Kefauver-Harris Amendment of 1962, go ahead and share your experience below. I'd be interested to hear. The Poison Prevention Packaging Act of 1970. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is responsible for enforcing the act. That's an important note to remember. The purpose is to prevent poisoning in children. This requires that most drugs must be packaged in a child-resistant package. There are certain medications that do not have to be packaged in child-proof containers. Patients may also request non-child-proof containers by signing a log or when requesting from the physician. Although a patient has a child-proof containers, it does not mean it is child-resistant. And also the bottles that I remember growing up, you had to line up the arrows in order to pop the cap off. A lot of the bottles now, you have to squeeze both sides and twist it to pop it off. That's because of this Poison Prevention Act of 1970. Now it is important to remember that it's not child resistant, so children can still get in there. I know that even some adults can't even get in there either. But I see this a lot where I work, is that people call and they want the non-safety caps because they can no longer, they don't have the strength in their hands to squeeze it down and to twist it. Medications that cannot have the child-proof containers is going to be your nitroglycerins, because if you're having a heart attack, you're going to be weak in the hands and you're not going to be able to pop it off, and so they make it really easy to pop it off, and so you can take one of those. Well, what do you know? We're actually talking about it right now. So exemptions to the Poison Prevention Act are the sublingual forms of the nitroglycerin, sublingual and chewable forms of the isosorbide dinitrate under 10 milligrams, liquid and tablets of sodium fluoride less than 264 milligrams, questrin or anhydrous cholestyramine, Medrol, also known as methylprednisolone, less than 84 milligrams, oral contraceptives in blister pack, APAP. Now here's a quick question. What is APAP? Acetaminophen. All right, and what is ASA? Aspirin. All right, so acetaminophen, 13 grains, and aspirin, 15.4 grains in powder form in unit dose packages. Potassium supplements in unit dose packages less than 50 MEQs. Conjugated estrogens no more than 32 milligrams, and medroxyprogesterone. Drug recalls. There are 3 levels to a drug recall. Now, this is going to be important. I do remember this being on a test, so I would recommend knowing these. So class 1 drug recall is the exposure or ingestion of a product may cause serious adverse health effects or fatal harm. Class 2 is the exposure or ingestion of a product that may cause reversible health effects but will not cause fatal harm. Class 3 is the exposure or ingestion of a product that will not likely cause harm. So of course, class 1, it could kill you. Class 2, it could cause side effects that can be reversed. Class 3, it won't likely cause harm. Class 3 might be that it's not supposed to be the color, something like has to do with the dyes or the shapes, but you get the idea. The FDA is not responsible for the drug recall, although they may request it from a company. So the FDA cannot come and say, I force you to recall this drug, but a lot of companies, they want to recall the drug because of all the lawsuits that could happen. And of course, they're just trying to make sure everyone is safe and they don't get sued, so they don't have to pay out a lot of money. The Medical Device Law of 1976, this required companies to have pre-market approval of medical devices. This was to ensure that the product was not making false claims and was not harmful to the public. Patient package insert. The following require a patient package insert each and every time dispensed. So no matter if it was your first time or your 100th time taking this medication, you will still get a patient package insert or a PPI. So oral contraceptives, isoproterenol as an active ingredient, estrogen prescription products, DES or diethylstilbestrol when used for postcoital contraceptive, IUD, and progestational drug products. Federal Anti-Tampering Act of 1983. This was passed in 1983 in response to deliberate contamination of Tylenol capsules. All OTC products must have a tamper-resistant barrier that, if breached, can be recognized. Also, the barrier must not be able to be reproduced easily. Although a product may be tamper-resistant, it does not qualify it as child-resistant. So this is what I was talking about previously. It has a lot of it has the aluminum foil cap on it with the cotton underneath it. That's because of the Federal Anti-Tampering Act. If you see a seal that's broken, you should report it and not take it because it might be tampered with. And again, like I did previously, if you remember this act being enforced and brought to pass, then go ahead and tell us any of your experiences that you have dealing with this law or act. The Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1990. This required Medicaid patients to be offered counseling, mandated records to be kept about the patient and drug therapy for prospective and retrospective drug utilization review. Now, something that I want to point out that might be obvious or might not be obvious, this is going to be important. If you take the O, the B, the R, and the A, that's the OBRA. So the OBRA is big because OBRA is what prohibits pharmacy technicians talking to members about safety concerns. This needs to go to a pharmacist. And so if you ever see anything that says OBRA, you know that it has to go to a pharmacist to discuss with a member. The Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994. The FDA has no jurisdiction over these products unless they are misbranded or adulterated. Examples would include most herbal and mineral products. Products must have a supplemental panel. Products can only make 3 claims on its label as to what the product remedies or helps. Examples include disease, nutrient content, and nutrition support. So if you walk into your local grocery store and you go look for vitamins and you pick up the vitamins, on that bottle you'll only see 3 claims of what it can help, whether it's going to help you stay awake, help you lose weight, and help your acne. This can't have any more than those 3. What the manufacturers do is they find the top 3 uses of this medication and they throw it on the label. Material Safety Data Sheet, MSDS. So OSHA is Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It's a unit of the U.S. Department of Labor. A requirement for displaying MSDS in the workplace where hazardous chemicals are used or stored. OSHA is going to be an important group to remember, so remember that now. OSHA is Occupational Safety and Health Administration. OSHA is what keeps us workers safe. If you ever go into the cleaning closet and it has the cleaning materials in there, most likely you should find an MSDS, and that'll tell you how to treat any misfortune that happens with the chemicals inside. Okay, the next one's going to be the National Drug Reference Code. This is important as well, so I'd recommend you knowing this, but this is referred as the NDC number. This must be placed on the top third of the wrapper label. This is made up of 10 numbers and any of the possible configurations listed below. As you can see here, there's 4 numbers, 2 numbers, 5 numbers, 4 numbers, 1 number, 5 numbers, 3 numbers, 2 numbers. This 10-digit number is put on every drug product. Each number has a special meaning and purpose. The first segment identifies the manufacturer. The second segment identifies the drug name, strength, and dosage form. And the final third segment identifies the package size. A UPC number is on all other over-the-counter products. So if you have a medication bottle, go ahead and look and see if there is an NDC on the top third part of the label. I would recommend you knowing 1, 2, and 3 here. Very important. The USP/NF is the United States Pharmacopoeia, or the National Formulary. This enforces standards and specifications for purity, strength, quality, packaging, labeling, storage, and occasionally bioavailability. USP is made up of monographs for active ingredients and dosage form. NF is made up of excipients or inactive ingredients. The USP/DI is 3 volumes of books: drug information for the healthcare professional, advice for the patient, drug information in lay language, and approved drug products with therapeutic equivalent evaluations, known as the Orange Book. Now, I know it might be a silly question, but what does lay language mean? Lay language means just language that the normal person can understand. Another important book that I would recommend you knowing is the Orange Book. So the Orange Book, again, like I said before, is approved drug products with therapeutic equivalence evaluations, or bioequivalency. Something that helps me remember things a lot are just silly things that that you can find and you can relate to something that helps you remember it. So the Orange Book is apples and oranges. So if you compare apples and oranges, usually if you hear that phrase, you're comparing two things that are completely different. And so the Orange Book, you're comparing one medication to see if it is an apple or see if it's an orange. So see if it's the same thing. See if it's bioequivalent to the other one. Federal versus state law. It is important to note the federal laws provide the guidelines that state board pharmacies use to govern the practice of pharmacy in their state. When two laws differ, the more stringent rule must follow. This again is very important. I'm going to go ahead and highlight or underline this. But when two laws differ, the more stringent rule must be followed. It is the state boards that are responsible for the licensing of both prescribers and dispensers of medication, and also for the guidance and regulations governing the practice of pharmacy in that state. The guidelines for functions that technicians can perform have also been set by the law. The technician may not take an oral prescription order and may not give drug recommendations of any kind for an over-the-counter or prescription drug. So if you're working and someone says, "Hey, I have a headache, what would be something good to take?" It might be really simple and you know what it is, but it is very crucial, very important that you do not go over that with the patient or the customer. You need to reference them to a pharmacist and just say, "Hey, I'm unable to answer that question, but let me go ahead and get a pharmacist to answer that question for you." OSHA. So we talked about this a few slides ago, but the OSHA is the organization responsible for ensuring that the workplace is safe, and it stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. This organization requires that information be readily retrievable as to the hazardous chemicals used or housed in the facility. The specifics of these chemicals are recorded on a material safety data sheet, which tells of storage requirements. Hazardous chemicals are defined as those that can cause physical damage and pose a danger to health. Explosive or flammable substances that are used and stored in pharmacies would be those that can cause physical damage, and many drugs, most notably the chemotherapeutic agents, would pose a danger to health. It would be necessary to use a spill kit to clean and dispose of these hazardous chemicals and drugs. I'll go ahead and include a link below of a DEA 222 order form so you understand what it is. So you understand what it looks like. But a DEA 222 order form is the form specifically to order controlled medications. That is going to be an important form that you'll need to know. The DEA 222 form is to order controlled medications. All right, so this is going on to the drug section of the course. So antihypertensive agents, what are they? Well, the hypertension is defined by having several blood pressure readings that are 120 mmHg systolic and greater than 80 mmHg diastolic. Normal is considered 120 over 80. High blood pressure is a silent disease due to most people's inability in knowing their pressure is actually high. Chronic high blood pressure can lead to stroke, heart attack, and kidney damage, and many other various problems. So you're going throughout your day, sometimes your blood pressure goes up, sometimes it goes down, and you can't really tell exactly what it is, but sometimes it does go greater than the 120 or 180. And that's why it's known as a silent disease, because people don't monitor it like they should. And because they're not able to monitor it, like this says, it can lead to stroke, heart attack, and kidney damage. So there are at least 3 different ways to affect or decrease blood pressure. So in the body, you can remove the fluid from the cardiovascular system, you can increase the diameter of the blood vessels, or you can decrease the amount of force in which the heart is pumping. So the medications that serve as the antihypertensive agents, it's going to do one of the 3, or at least one of the 3. And again, this is referencing the workbook that is used in the pharmacy course. You're most certainly able to go online and to review the antihypertensive agents. And I'll go ahead and try to include a link below. So this is going to be the math portion of the class. I do have a video on this. I'll go ahead and include in the link below as well. But a ratio is defined as a way of expressing a relationship between a quantity and another. These can be expressed by a colon or a fraction. A proportion is a way of representing equality between two fractions or ratios. So for example, 1 milligram. Oh, I gave the answer first. What a shame. Okay, a vial reads 1 milligram per 5 milliliters and the patient requires 10 milligrams of medication. How many milliliters must be administered to the patient? So the way that I like to do these is I like to first you find out your known and your unknown. So your known in this equation or in this question is 1 milligram over 5 milliliters. So that's your known, and the patient requires 10 milligrams of medication. So what is the unknown? The unknown is how many milliliters must be administered to the patient. And I know many people have their own different ways of doing it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it this way for consistency in the course. But the first thing that I do is line equals line. On the left side, I like to have our known values. Okay, so our known is going to be 1 milligram over 5 milliliters. And on the right-hand side, we're going to have our unknowns. So we want to make sure the units are on the same half. So milligrams are going to be on the top, and milliliters are going to be on the bottom. So our unknown, they're going to give us at least one of these questions, or one of these answers. So we have to see which part they're going to give us, and they're going to give us the 10 milligrams. So once you have that, you cross multiply and divide. So 5 times 10 is 50, divided by 1 is going to be 50 milliliters. So there's going to be 50 milliliters administered to the patient if we want them to have 10 milligrams of medication. Here are a few practice problems to become more familiar with. If an alprazolam tablet contains 0.2 milligrams of active ingredients, how much is contained in a 75 tablet bottle? So the first thing we're going to do is line equals line. And on the left side is going to be our what? Is going to be our knowns. Okay, and our right side is going to be our unknowns. So our unknowns and our knowns. So our knowns is going to be 1 tablet equals 0.2 milligrams. How many milligrams is in a 75 tablet bottle? So we cross multiply and we divide. And when we do that, it gives us the answer of, so the answer is going to be 15 milligrams. All right, another practice problem is a patient weighs 225 pounds. How many kilograms does the patient weigh? So this is where us knowing our conversions is important. So we know that 1 kilogram holds how many pounds? 2.2 pounds, that's right. And so that, because we know our conversions, that's going to be our known value. What is our unknown value? Well, our unknown value is how many kilograms the patient weighs. But our known of that unknown is the 225 pounds. So when we cross multiply and divide, that's going to give us 102.3 kilograms. How much would 4 pounds of sulfur cost if you purchase 150 pounds of sulfur for $2,362.12? What is the known? Well, the known is 150 pounds of sulfur cost $2,362.12. What is the unknown? Well, the unknown is how much 4 pounds of sulfur would cost. But our known within that unknown is that 4 pounds. So when we cross multiply and divide, that'll give us $2.99. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. And again, if you're interested in tons of more practice problems and questions, go ahead and email me at farmvilletech@gmail.com and we'll get you signed up for the course. And again, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel for future updates and future releases of weeks 3 through 8 of the Pharmacy Technician course. Thanks. See ya.